Hello, my name is Ronald Kahn III, and I built a website database that contains a cosmology. The reason I did this is because very soon, though not by the time I'm posting this video, I'll be launching a long-form podcast where I talk about my various out-of-body experiences, starting with a very intense journey out of my body that happened during a near-death experience. And while I would sometimes talk about it with people I trusted, I never really thought I would share it publicly and as in-depth as I'm going to in this long-form podcast. In anticipation of the podcast's launch, which will be soon, I have built this vast website that serves as a personal wiki. The idea behind building this wiki was so that I could have a very precise set of terms that people could go reference. The podcast throws a lot at people, and I imagine they'll want to re-listen to it. And the wiki will be this kind of evolving library of terminology, descriptions, images, and likely more content as this goes on. I anticipate people will ask me questions that I didn't think of, and then I can answer them, and then also put those answers up on the wiki. I'm excited to have like a Q&A section and things like that. I did this because I know there's no way I'm going to explain everything in a way that is easy to understand. Out-of-body experiences are really, really complicated, and I was able to experience timelessness, being in multiple places at once. Communication happens telepathically at a speed that would fill a book a second in terms of the amount of information that can pass between you and somebody else, and a lot of other wild stuff. It's crazy. So it's kind of like a landing point and a cosmology in of itself. And it's been a lot of fun to pour through my notes, and also kind of a challenge too. Plan is to have the long-form podcast supported by visuals and have the wiki as a reference that people can go look at if they want to go deeper into the subjects. I'll be narrating the story of my near-death experience and then talking broadly about other out-of-body experiences and related phenomena. There's a lot of ground to cover, so I anticipate I'll have a lot of episodes to make. The database itself took a long time. It's the culmination of a lot of years of going through my own notes and trying to be precise. One of the things that's always been an obstacle to me is that spiritual language or metaphysical language is kind of imprecise. And when people use certain words like consciousness or source or spirit or anything like that, they could be talking about a variety of things. And something that I really valued was having a precision of language with as much scientific clarity as I could bring. I spent a lot of time formalizing the language that I use and organizing it into this wiki that I'm posting online. It will continue to grow and evolve as I make more episodes, and I have a questions and answers section I'd like to build for when I get questions from people about the podcast itself, so I can start to kind of build an even more comprehensive database. I hope it becomes kind of a repertoire and a library of ways to discuss non-physical experiences with a little more precision. I don't intend to be the end-all be-all expert on out-of-body experiences, altered states, dreams, and what I believe to be a map of the reincarnation cycle. I'm rather just trying to contribute to the discussion. It's my personal belief that the truth, whatever it happens to be, is a bit too complex and intricate for a single person to really understand. So I see my work as part of a larger web that includes philosophy, religion, spiritual practice, esotericism, and even things like Jungian psychology. We're all trying to comprehend why we're here and what it means and what consciousness is. And this is my best attempt to contribute to that. If I accomplished anything, it would be helping alleviate people's fear of death. I don't think death is something we should be afraid of, and it's not the end. In many ways, it's sort of a beginning. I also firmly believe in reincarnation, as the podcast will explain. And I think as more people tell stories like mine and attempt this sort of scientific precision, there's a evolution of consciousness that's possible. One of the biggest challenges of these out-of-body experiences is that not everything cleanly translates, and the process of trying to kind of tell a story about an experience that was timeless and also like all over the place has been hard. And if there is space, it's nothing like what we experience here. I mean, it's almost cliche, but a lot of the stuff I experience looks like Alex Gray's art or like a Tool cover or something like that. It's actually not a fairly inaccurate way to portray things, but I'm trying to render that comprehensible for people who haven't gone through it because I think it's important. But also, I just didn't want to seem crazy. Privately, as these experiences happened to me over my life, I thought I might be schizophrenic or some other kind of mental illness. And as such, I didn't tell anyone. In fact, the podcast and the website launching is going to be how a lot of people find out about this double life that I lived, trying to understand these experiences by doing private research and getting into spiritual practices. Also, I think there'll be a lot of skepticism and resistance. I've seen people get attacked online for less crazy things, and I guess we'll see. The build up to deciding to do this has been a long time coming. The logistics of building the website and the database has been using Obsidian to kind of organize my thoughts and then coding it into something that can be shared online. That's been technically difficult. I've used a little bit of Claude Code to kind of help me bridge the gap, but honestly, the biggest resistance was, again, that fear of being considered crazy and desire to be kind of normal, I guess. I make a lot of weird esoteric art. If you're on this YouTube channel and scroll through it, you can see that, but that always has the excuse behind it of, I'm an artist. Artists do weird things, and there's this sort of slot in society for an artist to be a certain amount of weird, and this feels outside of that. I'm going to be making some very strong claims, and I'm going to be saying it directly and clearly. My kind of preparing myself for that's been very hard. In fact, the first time I discussed in any detail what happened to me occurred only a couple of months ago. If you are somehow on this channel and don't know, I'm a member of a group called the Dharma Artists Collective. We're a group of artists and creative, brilliant people who are trying to reclaim their focus in order to create meaningful art, businesses, and all kinds of other things that reclaim our sovereignty and kind of help create what I would call nutritious art for the internet rather than just endless amounts of slop and empty entertainment. But even more deeper than that, the pursuit of a person's dharma as creative expression is a spiritual path for most of us. And so this is just the evolution of that for me. Whereas my art talks about some of my experiences indirectly via veiled metaphors and mythology references, this is a lot more precise. And I learned that people wanted to hear this more precise version at an event that the Dharma Artists Collectives held that involved an open mic. I told a very short version of what happened, only a couple of minutes, and a lot of people came up to me afterwards and wanted to know more about it. The decision to make this podcast and build this website, which was something that had been in the back of my mind, became a lot easier when real human beings were not only interested, but supportive. So I can't really say enough about how great that was. And I'm very curious to see where this goes. It's going to take me hours and hours of audio just to describe what happened to me. And after that, there'll probably be a lot more episodes worth of explaining things that I introduce in this podcast, because while it is largely a story of my out-of-body experience, it is also a cosmology. The structure of the events, the things I encountered, even non-physical entities, is a lot of information. And I'll keep doing it as long as people are interested. And I want this website and database to be something that evolves with feedback from people, especially if they have questions. I'll be making more images and diagrams because I want to help people understand as long as they do. And just to give you an idea of what you're in for, I have a short preview here. So check it out.
In the first stage of the experience, my awareness dissolved into a free-floating, formless state and very rapidly began to split apart. Everything was dark when my body gave out, but this was not darkness in the sense of there being no light. This was a dark that was truly void. There was nothing to sense. I no longer had a body, so I had no senses to use. I could see nothing, hear nothing, feel nothing, or taste anything. It is bizarre to reflect upon. In this initial stage, as my mind began to fragment, I started to perceive shapes and colors. All of the different streams of my own consciousness, parts of myself that were now given a life of their own, each with its own unique perspective, began to generate forms and structures. They were doing this via thought. My thoughts were no longer just an internal monologue or me picturing images in my mind. Rather, it was a stream of impulses, feelings, ideas, sometimes words, that turned into colorful geometries that began to fill the void I found myself in. I felt as though I was somehow both a group and an individual. I shifted between different streams of ideas and occasionally zoomed out to view the entire group all at once. There was an incredible amount of activity in these initial moments. I became aware of the generation of the strange geometry. I began to react to myself and create more geometry. All of the voices, thoughts, and ideas quickly created a large landscape of these strange forms. They were all geometric, rippling with energy, changing in color and shape rapidly. They were also, to a degree, malleable. If I focused on them, I could change their shape and appearance. Every time I had a new thought, a shape would materialize out of nothing, free-floating, luminous, twisting itself slowly into a geometry that vibrated as if it were alive. I realized if I focused my attention on any one of these forms, its contents, the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that created it, would suddenly fill my awareness, as if I had remembered something I had once forgotten. It was as if I was absorbing their contents again and reliving the moment of their creation.
If you thought that was cool, there's a bit longer of a preview available to members of the Dharma Artists Collective. We're on School. I've put links down below if you're not a member already. If you do decide to join and use the link I have in the description, I get a little bit of a kickback. I would appreciate that, but I hope you join either way. And the longer preview is there. That link for the longer preview will only work if you're a member because it is a private community. So if you're somehow here and not a Dharma artist, you should come hang out with us. We have regular Zoom calls where we do long work sessions. The point is to get into flow and do the things that are important to you in a group. And honestly, the secret sauce is it's oddly powerful to be in a Zoom call with like 60 other people who are trying to focus. Kind of makes you want to stay focused. And afterwards, we share experiences. There's a lot of camaraderie, there's a lot of understanding, and a lot of good times. It's a good family of people to come join. And that's about it. I'm planning a 3-episode launch with like a proper social media build out because the algorithm values that, and I think this deserves that. So the website and some social media will be up by the time this video launches, and that's kind of the big thing that I'm submitting for the competition, but it's really just the beginning of something even bigger. This big, crazy podcast that I'm going to be doing that is going to radically change my life. I look forward to what people have to say, and if you have questions or feedback on the preview, you can post them here or DM me in the DAC. I'll still be making stuff on this channel. I'll just use this as the place to make my weird art. But the podcast will have its own social media handles and YouTube channel, because while it is an audio experience, I've made a bunch of diagrams and will continue to try and make visuals because I'm a visual person and I think they help. I look forward to it, and I'm excited to see what people think. It's a big moment for me. I'm stepping out into the world in the way that I never thought I would. So I hope you're along for the ride, and thanks for watching.